The Lord says, "A sound is heard in Ramah, the sound of bitter weeping. Rachel is crying for her children. They are gone, and she refuses to be comforted. Stop your crying and wipe away your tears. All that you have done for your children will not go unrewarded. They will return from the enemy's land. There is hope for your future. Your children will come back home. I, the Lord, have spoken."
Then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, was in a furious rage, and he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and in all that region who were 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had ascertained from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah.
A few weeks ago, I attended a Christmas concert at St. Francis of Assisi Catholic School out in West Des Moines. My great niece, Livia, is in the 6th grade, and her class was giving their middle school concert. The last song of the night, sung by all of the middle school singers, was a song called "Rise Again." And the moment they started to sing, I recognized the song and I thought, I know that song. I love that song. It was so familiar to me, I could have sung every word of it, but I couldn't remember how I knew it. You ever had any of those experiences? But on the way home, I remembered that it was a song by the Rankin Family, a Canadian group from Nova Scotia that I had happened on in the mid-1990s when I bought a couple of their albums, and I still have the CDs. Everybody got CDs. Rise Again was a favorite among those songs. So the poetry of the first verse and chorus go like this. When the waves roll on over the waters and the ocean cries, we look to our sons and daughters to explain our lives. As if a child could tell us why, that as sure as the sunrise, as sure as the sea, as sure as the wind in the trees, we rise in the faces of our children. We rise in the voices of our song. We rise in the waves out on the ocean, and then we rise again. We are here today because we know that song. We love that song. We know deep in our bones the truth of we look to our sons and daughters. We know the truth of we rise again in the faces of our children. Surely it's a song that has been sung since creation. It's the same song that birthed Rachel's anguish. It's the same song that sent Mary and Joseph fleeing for their child's safety. Certainly, it's the same song that Herod and so many Herods try to silence so brutally. It's the same song that we lift up relentlessly together every year at this Feast of the Holy Innocents prayer service for peace. The next couple of lines in the song continue to describe what brings us here today. When the light goes dark with the forces of creation across a stormy sky. if ever we have felt the light going dark, not only with the forces of creation, but also with the forces of unchecked power, wars without end, the violence from guns in hands targeted, the brutality of bombs dropped remotely, randomly. If ever we have felt the light going dark for the holy innocents, it is now. If ever storms have loomed above and beside and all around us, threatening the lives of so many holy innocents, it is now. And here we are. And what do we say? And what do we do? What do we say and do to assure that we can continue to look to our sons and daughters in the light of each sunrise, in the immensity of the sea, in the beauty of the wind in the trees, to assure that generations will rise all over the world in the faces of our children, in the voices of their song? On this feast of the Holy Innocents, what do we say? What do we do? As I was looking for answers for those questions in preparation for reflecting together today, I came across a blessing by the inspired and inspiring 89-year-old Rabbi Arthur Waskow. It goes like this. With blessings of compassion and commitment, that the plagues upon our country and the world might be nullified and healed by the strength of our values and our action, we are rooted in the interbreathing Spirit, capital I, capital S, who weaves all life together. Maybe we need to hear that again. With blessings of compassion and commitment, that the plagues upon our country and the world might be nullified and healed by the strength of our values and our action, we are rooted in the interbreathing Spirit that weaves all life together. So if Rabbi Waskow is to be believed, and a lifetime of activism fueled by moral and spiritual imagination would assure us that he most certainly is to be believed, we begin where he suggests that we begin. We begin by rooting ourselves in that interbreathing Spirit who weaves all life together. And that's exactly what we're doing here this afternoon. We are gathered to root ourselves in that interbreathing Spirit who weaves all life together. What a grounding, life-affirming, hopeful image. Perhaps even an essential image, an essential practice if we are to fuel our moral and spiritual imaginations, our activism. And maybe that image of connection with an interbreathing Spirit who weaves all life together is a mirror image of the beginning lines of our beginning song this afternoon. There is a prayer, like a wide river. It never ends, does not begin. Around the world, it's always flowing. And we continue to sing those powerful affirmations. I am stepping in. We are stepping in. With our compassion and our commitment, as Rabbi Waskow names it, to nullify and heal the plagues upon our country and the world with our values and our activism. The particular plague that this time brings to us is the slaughter of the innocent. Children's lives diminished and destroyed daily in our world at the hands of tyranny and oppression, convenience, indifference, and a catastrophic lack of imagination. So, looking again for inspiration for words to describe what shape our values and action might take in nullifying and healing the plagues of the slaughter of the innocents. A word that we learned from Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg came to mind, and the word is path marking. Path marking was a signature word for Justice Ginsburg, and she used it often in her judicial decisions. It was a word that she used to identify a decision as one that showed others the way. Path marking. So the day I agreed to offer this reflection, which I have regretted from time to time since then, a friend, Robin Klein, sent me a link to a StoryCorps segment on NPR that I wish I had heard decades ago, but I heard it that day. I think it is a story about path marking. The story is about fourth graders making path marking decision. It is a story about fourth graders being path markers. Briefly, these fourth graders, beginning in Charleston, West Virginia, let's try this again, Charlottesville, Virginia, all right, in 1978, and continuing many places to this day, participate in the World Peace Game. The game was created by John Hunter, who was a public school teacher. In the game, students are divided into nation teams, given a specific role, such as presidents, tribal leaders, diplomats, and tasked with tackling the world's most pressing problems, including economic, social, and environmental crises, and the imminent threat of war. The goal of the game is to extricate each country from those dangerous circumstances and achieve global prosperity peacefully. Although Mr. Hunter retired 10 years ago, the World Peace Game lives on in a book and in a film and through a foundation that continues the game's implementation and impact. I could go on and on about that, but the story I want to share today is a story from StoryCorps. So John Hunter, the teacher, tells the story. I got a phone call. Hello, Mr. Hunter, Pentagon. We'd like to know if you could bring your students to the Pentagon so we could ask them directly how they do what they do. I thought, okay, it's going to be a nice photo op. We're going to have pizza with a general or something. No, they brought my 24 students into this room, all dressed up, suits and ties on the guys. One of the girls had a nice poofy skirt with sparkles and rhinestones and sparkly shoes. They had their top secret dossiers under their arms. It said in big letters, top secret dossier. And they grill my students for 3 hours. I remember General Santee, a general in the Air Force, bending down to ask my Secretary General of the United Nations in her poofy skirt, what do you do when I have a supply chain breakdown? And Sarah, she smoothed her skirt and said, well, I just had to deal with that last week. And let me tell you what I did. It was surreal. I'm a teacher of these children, 4 feet tall, now peer to peer and eye to eye, nose to nose, with some of the most powerful military people in the world who are taking them seriously. And then, before we leave, a door opens to the conference room and a colonel steps out and he says, Mr. Hunter, we're ready for your delegation. We go in and there is Leon Panetta, the Secretary of Defense. He says, I got 10 minutes. I have to go meet with the president. He says, what's your toughest problem? He's serious. And in one voice, they all say, well, climate change, of course, because it's affecting everything. He says, what did you do about it? And they talked for 25, 30 minutes. He was late to go see the president. The most powerful military commander in the world shows respect to fourth graders who've lived through, in a fictional way, what he's living through every day. He came asking my students advice. Mr. Hunter concluded the story with this, and this is why I'm the most hopeful person you will ever meet. Because I've seen children for almost 5 decades figure this out, so much so that world leaders have come asking, can your children show us how to do this? Because we've not figured it out. Clearly, children have the capacity to be path markers. Holy innocence, alive and learning, thinking and feeling, imagining and creating are essential if we are going to make peace in this world. One of the students in a trailer for the film about the World Peace Game sums up the impact of the game this way. One of the things I learned is that other people matter. In this game, one person can't win. Everyone has to win. And that taught me a lot about cooperating with other people, being generous, and having an attitude that if you can work together, you can achieve anything. The path marking that would create for our children a world of safety and security rather than danger and fear, a world of creativity and vision rather than hopelessness and misery, a world of imagination and well-being rather than constraint and threat. That kind of path marking may not be child's play, but perhaps it can be inspired by child's play, like the World Peace Game played by those fourth graders. What might such path marking look like? Learning can be path marking. Learning as much as we can about specific threats to children, about the realities surrounding those threats, about the possibilities for removing the threats. Creating a team is path marking. Inviting friends and parents and grandparents, policymakers at every level and their staff members to bring what they can to the conversation about caring for children, to make it a conversation that we have at every level, personal and local conversation, state and national conversation, global and universal conversation. Storytelling is path marking. Knowing and telling the stories of the lives of holy innocents lost. Giving witness to the loss that we all experience at the loss of any child, each child, and uncovering and telling stories of children like fourth graders in poofy skirts crafting top secret dossiers. Certainly being a friend and encourager of a particular child is path marking, supporting their tenderness, their fierceness, their resilience, however it is that they are able to show up and live in this world. Path marking, showing the way, offering whatever we can to such efforts is a shape our values and action might take in nullifying and healing the plague of the slaughter of the holy innocents in our world. So back at the Christmas concert at St. Francis, I don't know how to communicate how moving it was to hear children, those young people, singing so strong and so true the chorus of that song. We rise again in the faces of our children. We rise again in the voices of our song. We rise again in the waves out on the ocean. And then we rise again. Somehow hearing those words pouring out of those hearts and souls and voices of that choir of young ones brought home in a deep way the voices of children and young people that are no more. Those who have been silenced in this year alone. So many, and too many yet unknown. It is literally impossible to name them. But we have to try to acknowledge and name them in some fashion. The truly countless holy innocents lost in this year. And so we close by naming some of the rivers that run through some of the places where they lived and died and are mourned and missed beyond imagining. The Jordan River running through Palestine. The Dnipro River running through Ukraine. The Nile River running through Sudan. The Congo River running through the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Euphrates River running through Syria. The Irrawaddy River running through Burma. The Rio Grande River at the U.S. southern border. And the Yahara River running through Madison, Wisconsin. There is a prayer, like a wide river. It never ends, does not begin. Around the world, it's always flowing, and we are stepping in. I am stepping in. We are stepping in.
A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled because they are no more.
But when we open our hearts to you and to one another, so you can work with us, through us, nothing will ever be impossible.